All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tony Lynham, and I'm your president and chair of the board for SCB. I'd like to warmly welcome you to our members meeting for 2021. I hope you've been enjoying the conference. And this meeting is open to all participants in the Congress, whether you're a member of SCB or not. The purpose of this meeting is to update our Congress participants on what's being done to support our members and why SCB is your professional society. Next slide, please. Yep. So this meeting is an opportunity for you to meet who is on our board and who is leading the regional sections, chapters, working groups, who is leading our education and outreach, our membership, and our programs. And these are the people who serve on the board that you see in this slide here. You'll be hearing from almost all of them today. And all of the members of the board are volunteers, and I'd like to thank them sincerely for all their efforts in helping to steer the ship this year. So maybe I can then go to the next slide and introduce our staff. So tonight you'll also be hearing from our SCB staff. You may already have met some of them in the Congress, as they've been taking very important roles to make sure things run as smoothly as possible. So we have a small but very active and engaged global services team that manages our membership, our communications, our finances, our fellowship program, and our journals, and are helping with our transition. And you'll be hearing more about that very soon. So now I'm going to ask Justine Vaz, our secretary, to take you through the agenda. Justine.
Okay, yeah, so the agenda for today, I think you've got it. So we are currently at the next on the agenda is we're going to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Tony is going to give some direction on where we're headed in this year, and there will be presentations on Vision 2026. Yes, so most of it is here, and we're lucky to have most of the section presidents and working groups presenting here lately. So anyway, this will be the way we're going to flow it. We are going to try to stay very much within 1.5 hours at the most, and there are opportunities for questions at intervals along the way. All right. Okay. So perhaps we'll move next to the next agenda, which is the approval of minutes from the 2020 meeting. So I'm going to switch to the minutes. Hold on a second. Oh, how do I do this? Hang on. Stop share. Minutes. Okay. So this is really for those that were in attendance at the 2020 meeting. Yeah, it's quite brief minutes. Perhaps Tony, maybe you might go to speak to what happened there. Is it on screen? Okay.
Yes, it is on the screen.
Okay. Yes. Can we share this with all the members subsequently, or put it up somewhere people can look at it as well?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. All right. I think the major things at this meeting was a vote to amend the SCB bylaws, which changed the terms for the president to the present system with 2+2+2. Right, and the rest was normal reporting. And Adina also highlighted the 3-year implementation period for the SCB reorganization. Okay, wrapping up was Tony with the group Congress report. And that was the meeting last year, right? Okay, so we need to get someone to propose the minutes be accepted.
So moved, Mark Schwartz.
Okay.
I
Mark Schwartz?
second.
Could you say your name?
Mark.
And?
Asuma Olaleru.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, stop sharing. And okay, so next up, I think Tony, you're going to do a presentation. So you're going to do. Have you got controls to share?
Yes, I do.
Okay, carry on.
So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So now, welcome everyone to our meeting. Before we get into the meat of the agenda, I'd like to take a few minutes to reflect on where our society has come from and where it finds itself today and where it is headed. And the first members meeting was held on the sidelines of ICCB in Bozeman, Montana. Our society was founded a few years earlier with a clear mission to advance the science and practice of conserving biological diversity, with a focus on viable population sizes, small populations, reserve systems, and corridors. Well, it's no secret that achieving this mission is increasingly a challenge due to the impact of the planet-altering ape that we call humans. We face a range of challenges as a society and as conservation scientists and practitioners. And in the next few slides, I'm going to illustrate these challenges. We're living on a warming planet, likely to be at least a few degrees warmer by the end of the century, with huge implications for biodiversity and human life. Now, as we've heard in the talks this week, the practice of conservation has evolved as a concern, not just for biodiversity, but for human well-being. The human footprint has changed with 75% of the planet now impacted by humans. And I'm proud to say that many of the studies that I'm illustrating in this talk tonight originate from the work of scientists and practitioners who are SCB members. And this one is such a collaborative effort. Well, populations are growing, and one of the most existential threats that we face is the human population growth. It's now 7.7 billion, but it's predicted to be 12 billion by the end of the century. So where will people live, and what will they and other life forms be eating to survive at that time when there's 12 billion people on our planet? At the same time, the world's fishing fleets are putting in greater effort for diminishing returns. And while this fishing is going on, 100 million sharks and rays are being killed by fishing and bycatch. And this has resulted in serious declines in their populations and red listings for almost all of the shark and ray species. Well, just this week, we learned that for the first time, there are more than 40,000 species that are identified as being threatened with extinction. But in fact, there are many more species expected to be facing extinction in future. And despite the misleading impression that humans were winning the fight against infectious disease in the middle of the 20th century, there is a list of emerging diseases around the world, and now we have COVID-19. Many of these diseases are due to novel contact between animals and humans. Wet markets where animals caught in the wild are directly sold to customers for food. These are places where novel diseases such as coronaviruses are passed on to humans consuming wildlife. Now, our efforts to cover land and sea with protected areas is on track, but just a small fraction of these areas could be said to be effectively managed, and communities are not always included in the decision-making on how these lands are managed. And just to say that only a small fraction of our protected and conserved areas have had any form of assessment to understand whether they're being effective. Well, conservation is a complex issue. And as we heard from Elizabeth Marema and Wanjira Matai this week, we have to do a better job of including Indigenous voices in the conversation. Engaging communities in decision-making is critical to success. We need to make transformative change in how we go about conservation business. And at the same time, the field of conservation is changing. And what we used to call conservation biology has now evolved into a multidisciplinary science. And in order to move forward, we need to recognize this disciplinary diversity. We need to embrace it in a way so that we can address the conservation challenges that I've just described. Now, we also need to embrace the diversity of the membership within our society across 6 regions, chapters, global programs, working groups, and task forces. We need to empower our members and support them to work towards addressing the challenges that I've described. So how can SCB stay relevant and how can we have impact? Well, here's some of the things that we need to do. We need to create a global collaborative network and a new business model to support members and to facilitate the sharing of knowledge. We need to improve equity and inclusion in science and conservation practice. We need more women, more minorities, and LGBTQIA+. We also need to allow for pathways for members to have a voice and be more involved in decision making. We need greater engagement with the social sciences and other disciplines to facilitate more robust and effective conservation. And we need to make SCB a more welcoming place as a professional home. We also want to collaborate with other organizations that share our mission and our vision. And this is a really nice mural, comes from Current Conservation, which I thought I'd share with you. This is in the latest issue of Current Conservation, and please have a look at this. So working together towards a shared vision for the future and engaging in collaborations with other organizations that share this vision is really our path to future success. So in the next talk by Jeff and Warren, we're going to learn how SCB is planning to reorganize to be in a position to deliver the needed change and to support and empower our members at the same time. So thank you. With that, I'm going to hand over to Jeff and Warren.
All right, so I'll move your slides for you, Jeff and Warren. You just have to cue me. Okay. Okay, Warren, do you want to make a start?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'd just like to introduce Warren, who's our managing director, and Jeff Sue, who is our partner from nRhythm, and they're going to present the Vision 2026 SCB reorganization presentation. Over to you.
Great. Thanks for that, Tony. I appreciate it. So SCB began a reorganization process. Oh, go to the next slide, if you don't mind. We began our reorganization process in 2020. So I'll summarize some highlights of this process. One, we began with 2-hour design sessions, or 2 8-hour design sessions with the design team. They're composed of a mix of board and staff. Then we moved on to an organizational health assessment using nRhythm's OHI report. So it's their organizational health index to assess the collective view of the health and operations of SCB. We had interviews with key SCB stakeholders, and all of this was gathered and analyzed by nRhythm, culminating with a recommendation for a model, which was approved by the SCB BOG. Next slide, please. From those 2020 design sessions, we articulated a shared purpose. You can see it over here on the left-hand screen. We exist to advance science, policy, and practice in a way that encourages collaboration, community, and knowledge exchange so that a diverse and united voice creates positive change for biodiversity conservation. And we use this to help us stay centered and focused for the transition to come. Next slide, please. There are many motivating factors behind the need for reorganization, and Tony in his introduction touched on many of them. So we have climate change, biodiversity loss, decolonizing conservation. We have racial and social equity, and the relevance of science to all keep in mind. Next slide, please. A second theme motivation for our transition is the state of is the state of operations and governance of SCB. The transition transforms SCB from a hub and spoke governance to a more equitable, decentralized global network. And this new global business model creates resources for sections, EID, and programs. So that's a main part of the vision here. Next slide, please. We also believe that we have designed a governance model that will empower sections, working groups, and chapters and members, align formal and informal powers, reduce bureaucracy, and support traditional underrepresented disciplines within conservation science. Next slide, please. Now, for this past year, for 2021, the Transition Implementation Group has been meeting bi-weekly since January to begin implementation of 17 work priorities. And this has been detailed over a 6-year business plan and a new global governance structure, which Jeff momentarily will get into. All of which are central to the realization of Vision 2026, which, as you see here in the last bullet, was approved by the BOG at the September board meeting. Thanks, Justine. So Vision 2026, again, to help us with this idea of moving from the hub and spoke to this decentralized global network, we vision that all sections to be resourced enough to hire between 1 to 1.5 full-time employees to support section activity, their own membership, and local chapters. Also, working groups, global programs, and task force are, we vision that they will be charting the programmatic direction and definition of SCB and have decision-making power at the global board level and with dedicated funding. We recognize the importance of EID in operationalizing it into decision-making and with dedicated funding. And finally, here on this slide, equitable pathways to access to leadership roles that are explicit and resourced. Next slide, please. And with all of this, we see the potential to grow a movement for more than 10,000 members. And this is a new associate member type, which we'll get communication on here as the transition continues in the future. And all 10,000 members of those that are considering SCB to be the home for their conservation projects and careers. We're also exploring new opportunities for new services and programming to support this worldwide movement in addition to in addition to our traditional conferences like ICCB and journals. And reorganizing formally what was the executive office into global services and redirect and empower section staff, facilitate global network function health, and manage global systems. With that, I'll pass it to you, Jeff.
Great, thank you, Warren. And I'll go ahead and advance all the animations, or else it'll be too hard to.
Okay, on it.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, I just want to say very briefly that my career started as a conservation biologist. I'm a member of SCB. So I am one of you, and it's been an absolute honor to be supporting the society this last 2 years and into the future. And also, this is one of these moments where so much collective work and effort and thinking and wisdom and energy and sweat equity has been put into, and it's going to be represented here in this two-dimensional flat diagram here. And just want to commend really everyone who is on this call that has worked on this, the board, the TIG, and really in the context of a lot of the work we do, we work with a lot of global networks. And I can honestly say that SCB has had one of the boldest visions of how to transform the network to truly embrace some really complex issues like global equity and the history and decolonizing conservation in a very honest and authentic way. And so this is the culmination of a lot of that work. And as I've said to everyone close on the board and the TIG. The structure is the beginning, of course, and we want to describe the structure to you, but how we live into this structure is a collective choice moving on from here, and we'll be continuing to support that. So as Warren mentioned, the large colored circles here represent the 4 major components of the governance structure. And different than currently, have you first focus on the purple circle, the regional council, and the programmatic council. So rather than a single global board, the idea was to really lift up and recognize the importance of both regional governance and regional decisions, as well as programmatic decisions such as branding, storytelling, identity, journal choice, disciplinary inclusion, the changing narrative of conservation biology to conservation science, as Tony mentioned. And so we're creating 2 governance bodies, both with intersections in between them, also with both empowered to make independent decisions, as well as come together to make connected decisions. Where those 2 councils come together is the Global Network Board. So it's made up of an equal representation of the Regional Council and the Programmatic Council, as well as the officers of the society. That is the legal board of the society in terms of entity status, in terms of in the legal world. And then supporting this whole structure is Warren and the Global Services staff. And so they are changing their roles from sort of thinking themselves as a central office to thinking of themselves as network leaders empowering this global network. Within all of this is a vision of each section becoming stronger and empowered to be able to manage membership and services for members in their section in a way that is unique and supported, and recognizing the differences between the different sections and the different regions of the world. Go ahead and move on to the next slide. And so very quickly, this is just the structure of the Global Network Board. It includes the 5 official officers of President, President-elect, Treasurer, and Secretary, and a specific EID officer. Then the equal representation from the 2 councils, there's 3 regional council members that will be rotating and 3 programmatic councils that will also be rotating. I'll take the chance here to say this is a structure that is still being built and still in progress. So the regional council members and the program council members have been meeting for the last 3 months, will continue to meet. The final governance is to be self-designed and self-organized within these groups. And if anyone's interested in becoming part of that, speak with Global Services or speak with Tony. And then there's also a representative of Global Services on the Global Network Board, representing the needs of that network leadership and the staff. Next slide, please. So there is a very, very detailed business model that connected to this governance model. And we're calling this Vision 2026 because we are stepping our way from now until 2026. And this represents a business model that's self-sustaining. It does not depend on external funding. So any external fundraising would be on top of this. But it is really living into and operationalizing this idea that there is not a central office that's making all the financial decisions, but it's truly a collaborative effort, and revenue is shared between all the sections. So the splits that you see represent the split between, the first number is the percentage of revenue from that source that goes to support the global infrastructure administered by Global Services. The second number is the amount of that revenue that is distributed equally to all 6 sections, as well as a specific fund to support programs and a specific fund to support equity, inclusion, diversity, and justice efforts. So you'll see there between membership journals and new services, those are the revenue splits. At a very high level, from a staffing perspective, we are planning on this being able to support 1 to 1.5 full-time employees within each section, and within the EID fund if that's the structure that chooses to arise, as well as maintaining the current level of global services staff, which is currently at 5 full-time employees. Next slide, please. So the growth assumptions to achieve this business model is the creation of a free membership. So this is a membership level that will embrace currently, a great example would be all the students and student sections and chapters, all volunteers who are working on the ground conservation efforts that have chosen to put their volunteer effort under the moniker of SCB. So we want to grow a movement of anyone wanting to be part of SCB and see that as their growing professional home will become a member and have certain services. The 10,000 number is not arbitrary. That is based upon the number of subscribers that we once had for Conservation Magazine. We see that as a little bit of an allegory, people who want to be engaged at that level. The business model then assumes a certain conversion rate from that free membership. As those members grow, their careers grow, their connections grow, they eventually will be choose to pay for a membership that includes certain services like access to journals, like discounts for conferences, as well as a broader idea of membership services than just one that fits sort of the traditional academic member. We want that to be more broadly appealing to conservation practitioners of all kinds. The new services are still to be designed. This will be trainings, webinars, different types of online as well as in-person services that could be created at really all levels of the society, at the global level, within sections, at chapters, and will become another revenue source to be shared through the collaborative revenue sharing model. Next slide, please. Great. So thank you all and for listening to our presentation.
Okay, so next up, we've got Jennifer to present the finance report. And after this, there will be a slot for questions, unless you want to have some questions now. Tony?
Maybe we can have a couple of minutes for questions if people have thoughts or ideas that they'd like to share with us, or you'd like to have some more information.
Okay.
So let's open for questions for 2 to 3 minutes. So what do people think about this new model?
No, if you don't want to eat, just go get ready.
All right. So, okay. Would anyone like
Volker?
to ask a question, Volker? All right.
My name is Volker. I'm a member, and I find this really interesting and forward-looking. I have just a question: if the people who are paid members, those are usually or often people at universities which have already the access to the journals through their universities, through their organizations, yeah. And so my question is, what can we offer those future associate members? For them, those are usually people who have not this access except their students at well-established universities, yeah. Would that not be most interesting for them to have this access to journals, particularly if those are people, associate members in the Global South? Thank you.
Maybe I could jump in there, Adina, and thanks, Volker. I often take a kind of a different perspective on membership, especially paid membership. First, I want to say we moved to a sliding scale in SCB, so we do try to have equitable fee levels. We've tried different models, so that point being that not everybody pays the same amount, and we try to accommodate what people can pay so that it's still within their ability to support the society. And I know that we generally think like we're paying for something, so what do we get from it? But I think we also need to think about the society as something that we want to support. So it's also our way of saying, hey, I care about the society, and this is my small contribution to make sure that it persists for others and into the future. So that's kind of more my perspective on paying members. They're people who really are central to the organization, central to the practice, and they gain from the network. They gain from the journals. Even if you have sort of access to the journal, you might be feeling that it's an important journal, that you want to offer it some support, that the conferences are important to happen, and you want to make sure there's resources there so that they actually happen. So yeah, I see paying members as dedicated to the success of the society and willing to contribute to it because it has larger benefits to them and to society and the field as a whole.
And I can add very quickly. Thank you, Adina, and great opportunity, Adina, when you've just spoken to. Also, thank you personally for all the efforts you have put into this vision. From the associate member side, Volker, I would say that it's an opportunity to not connect. I think the main reason why we want to join a professional society is to network and to connect on the level of our work. And so associate members will have the opportunity. We're still designing exactly what the splits will be, but the visions that the board and TIG has been talking about is that associate members have opportunities to participate in working groups, have opportunities to participate in regional conferences, or have all kinds of ways to network and be part of a professional society without the sort of ceiling of payment. But in many ways, it's also, we're hearing a lot of comments I also see here, is that I think for membership to stay strong moving forward, it needs to be more than access to journals, is what most comments are saying, because of the changing nature of the business model of journals, because of academia, because of many different things, and the number of members of the society who are not academics. And so a different type of membership and identity and set of services is needed. And I think there's lots of room for creativity.
Okay, shall we move ahead now? We can always take more questions later, and we should call on Jennifer to take over for the next bit. Okay.
And
right.
Justine, are you going to be advancing the slides for me?
I am.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we start with this one.
Okay, yep, that's perfect. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm the treasurer for the society, and I'm coming to you from Oregon in the US today. And my presentation today is going to mostly focus on the society's 2020 finances. So we've been talking about looking ahead. Now we're going to look back a little bit. What the information I present is going to cover the period of January 1st through December 31st of 2020. And I realize this might seem a bit outdated since we're about to head into 2022. However, historically, these are the numbers that are presented at the SCB members meeting. And there's a good reason for this. First of all, these are our most current audited financials. Also, since SCB's fiscal year ends on December 31st, we don't have any more recent final numbers at this point. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of context. I'll present the 2020 audited financials, and then I'll briefly discuss the status of the board designated reserves, and then conclude with some very brief comments about 2021 finances. And then there will be opportunity for questions at the end of the members meeting, I believe. So before I jump in, I just want to say thank you to the SCB staff, and in particular to Warren Sander and Miriam Hernandez, who are handling the finances on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so to start, what this slide is showing you is just gives you a general idea of the major sources of revenue for SCB. The largest sources of revenue are typically conferences, our journals, memberships, fellowships, grants, and donors. And this is what sustains SCB and allows us to focus on our mission. Okay, next slide, please. So what I'm showing on the screen at the moment is the 2020 audited statement of activities, which shows the society's actual revenue, expenses, and net assets for 2020. I realize it might be a little hard to see, but I'll talk through some of the important numbers here. So in 2020, for the fourth consecutive year, SCB engaged Cherry Beckert LLP, which ranks among the largest accounting firms in the US, to conduct its annual independent audit. SCB received a clean audit, with the audit report stating, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the society. So I'm going to quickly just talk through some of these numbers here. So in 2020, SCB's total non-restricted revenue was $3,023,357. The largest sources of revenue were funds for the Smith Fellows postdoctoral program, profit sharing, and publications. Other sources of revenue included return on investments, membership and outreach, and contributions and grants. In addition to this, in 2020, SCB was also the recipient of a loan through the Paycheck Protection Program in the amount of $174,000. And this is a loan that's made through the U.S. Small Business Administration to help organizations keep their workforce employed during the COVID-19 pandemic. This loan had a 1% interest rate, but borrowers were able to apply for loan forgiveness, which SCB did. And on December 15th of 2020, SCB was granted forgiveness for the entire amount of the loan plus interest. So moving on to expenses, in 2020, SCB's total expenses were $2,469,370. And the largest expenses were the Smith Fellows Program, membership and outreach, publications, and supporting services, which includes the costs associated with the executive office, governance, and development. Overall, SCB's net income in 2020 was $553,987. And overall, SCB's total assets decreased from $6.85 million to $5.7 million in 2020. This is primarily due to a standard release of assets from the Cedar Tree Foundation for the Smith Fellows Program. So as we're all aware, 2020 was quite an unpredictable year. And so when the SCB budget was approved in December 2019, we weren't aware of the fact that a global pandemic would significantly change the way the society would operate that year. But overall, SCB's actual expenses and revenue performed favorably when compared to our budget for that year. And there's two main reasons behind this. The first is that our revenue from publications was greater than our budgeted projections. And then also there was an overall reduction of the society's expenses in 2020. And this is because we just weren't able to do all the things that we actually planned to do. And so while COVID actually had a negative impact on our finances, in some areas, overall, the society's finances performed better than budget during this year. Finally, I'll just note that the total percentage of expenses that are directed towards supporting services, what some of you might think of as our overhead costs, were just below 12%. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows the historic values of the SCB board designated reserve funds. The Board Designated Reserve, or the BDR, was created in 1987 to help enhance the financial security of the society. And during 2020, the BDR had a total return of $102,994, or 12% of the prior year-end principal of stocks, bonds, and cash. The BDR principal increased from 1.48 million to 1.58 million. And this includes a disbursement of $75,000 that went to support office rent and operations. So despite some of the instability and the panic in the market in 2020, our portfolio fared pretty well. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm just going to conclude my report with a brief update on how things look for 2021. So despite the challenges of continuing to operate in a global pandemic, actual performance so far in 2021 tracks favorably against our budget. And the forecast to year end currently places financial performance in line with our budgeted allocations for the year. That's all I have. And so I think there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, that's excellent. All right, so we're going to move to publications now. And for this, I'd like to call on Mark Bergman, I think, to present the publications report.
Okay, Mark Schwartz, I think, is online as well. So hopefully.
Okay, all right. Okay, welcome. Okay, so I'll move the slides along if you just cue me.
Thank you very much. I only have one, so it should be straightforward. I think Ellen Main presented this last year. I can't remember where I was, but I was somewhere and unavailable. The highlights for, like the finance report, this report deals with how we were in 2020. Our submissions are steady at about 900, of which we published 161, an acceptance rate of about 20%. The median time between acceptance and appearance online was 2 days, and our impact factor. Oh, sorry, I can hear a voice.
Oh, right.
If you're online,
could I,
please mute yourself.
Yes, please kindly mute your mics if you're joining us. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
carry on,
everyone.
Mark. Right.
Our impact factor is 6.6, and of course, impact factors, we try not to focus on them, but they pursue us like I don't know, we can't get rid of them. But the one that I am particularly proud of is that the half-life, the citation half-life of our papers is more than 13 years, is above the upper bound of measurement for the half-life of papers, which means that our work continues to be cited long after it's published. And I think that is a feature of the work we do, and I think it's a feature of the quality of the work that we do. The changes last year in 2020, we went to a new format that was predicated by our publication partner, Wiley. We have increased our word limits in response particularly to no longer having a paper version of the journal. We have open research badges and member discount, publication discounts. Just to remind people, we are still a hybrid journal, and we are hanging on to that classification for as long as we can. As you're all aware, there's significant pressure internationally for open access. Open access has many positive traits. One of the negative traits is that an author pays model, and some authors can't afford to pay. The hybrid model provides a pathway for people who can't afford to pay to publish. And it is effectively, if you can't afford open access, you can publish in conservation biology for free. It will be behind a paywall, which means that you have to go to your library, or send an email to the author and they'll send you a copy, or access the accepted version so you don't get the nicely formatted version. But the substantive content is available to you and to the rest of the world, and you can publish for free. We will keep that as long as we can, but there is mounting pressure for journals to become open access no matter what. But still, that's just the state of the world. We last year had a special section on advancing conservation culturenomics, and we had an issue that was devoted particularly to reviews that came out in February. And in the spirit of the financial report, very briefly, for 2021, submissions continue at a steady rate. The acceptance rates are roughly the same. We haven't identified any significant changes. We have adopted some additional procedures for submissions to ensure conformity with ethics, conformity with open data and open access for data and for analyses and so on. But things are progressing. The journal's healthy. The handling editors continue to do a fantastic job. We have about 70 or 80 of those. We met with them yesterday, and we also met with some of the participants in the conference yesterday to do a question and answer session with some of our senior editors, and that went really well as well. It's a joy to be participating in this, and I also want to say thank you to Adina for her wonderful leadership over the last 3 years, managing the journals, getting contracts done, making sure the ship stayed afloat. So thank you, Adina, and thanks everybody.
Okay, I think you have to advance the slide, please, to the next one. Yep. So I'm Mark Schwartz. I'm the editor-in-chief of Conservation Science and Practice. And I guess I'd just like to start by echoing that thanks that Mark sent out, that Melissa Price, who's our liaison on the board, and Adina have been really great in leading the publications for the last few years. And it's starting to feel like we're a team of publications rather than independent publications. And that's really quite nice. So Conservation Science and Practice is quite a new journal. And as a consequence of it being established just 3 years ago with Wiley, it is an open access journal. It was the only option we had available to us to start this journal. And as a consequence, we're just finishing our 3rd year of publication. So we don't really have a very good idea of what our journal citation half-life is, but we'll find out in the years to come. But it's been quite a ride. It's been a very successful journal getting out of the gate. 2021 was our first fully indexed year in the ISI Web of Science. We just learned yesterday, as a matter of fact, from Wiley that we're being taken up by Scopus. As a consequence of having been indexed by ISI Web of Science, we received an impact factor in 2021. It was 3.233. That would put us in the top quartile. Now, I agree with Mark that impact factors are just terrible things to be measuring our worth by, but it does put us in the top quartile of journals, and that turns out to be a very important metric for some people in terms of their advancement at their institutions. And so it puts us into it puts us in a good place. Our submissions are growing quite rapidly, increasing from 284 in 2019 to over 400 this year, thus far. Our publications that we're publishing have also grown from 110, 188 last year and 250 this year. We expect growth again next year. And we'll see how large this journal grows, but it has a different philosophy than conservation biology, a different mission than conservation biology or conservation letters. That our goal here is to publish good science, whether or not it has global reach or impact. We recognize that a lot of us as conservation scientists in positions where we're measured by how we publish can't really participate in the enterprise of conservation science unless we're able to publish those works. And so we want to have a broad outlet for those publications. We added 2 senior associate editors this year because of the increased workload, Carly Cook and Jenny Glickman. We're in the process of adding a 3rd one for 2022. That's Martin Strauss from South Africa. We're looking, and we're adding handling editors. We added about 15 this year, and we're going to add about 15 or 20 in the new year. We feel like we have a rapid publication process. We have an average time to decision of 32 days. Now, that of course varies quite strongly, and that includes decisions that are 2nd and 3rd decisions, and sometimes those go very quickly. Things go early online within 2 weeks of acceptance, and that papers are assembled into an issue very quickly. They don't sit on the early online very long. We have a variety of special issues in the pipeline. We published our first one was in 2020. It was Emerging Issues in African Conservation Science, and we published 4 in 2021, and we expect another 3 to 4 in 2022. That's about all I have to say on conservation science and practice, and I am going to have to apologize for not staying around for questions. I am hosting a contributed papers section that starts in 10 minutes, and so I actually have to get off now and go start that Zoom. So nice to see everybody, and thanks for all the great work, and
thanks so much.
Carry on. Bye.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Okay, this right now we're going to actually have to call on Melissa, and so I'm skipping it across to her slides because she has to leave to present also, I think, in one of the sessions. So Melissa, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm actually facilitating. So Nate Spillman is kindly beginning the session that I'm supposed to moderate, and then I will hop over to that. So I'll be quick. So I'm Melissa Price. I'm the Vice President of Programs for the Society. And so my responsibilities are in the realms of both publications and policy. And so we've had a few changes this year in regards to the policy committee. You can go to the next slide, which has the policy committee. So you'll notice a couple of changes, the key one being that we have added both working groups and program representatives on the policy committee. So we have that expertise. Next slide, please. So the general process, this is a small slide with small writing, but I want to mention that there are this is all available on the website as far as the policy statement approval process. You submit any proposed policy statements to your section or working group policy chair, and all of that contact information is on the main website. If it is appropriate to a section, a particular region of the world, it goes to their review committee for approval. If it is at the global scope and passes those other things, then it gets approved or reviewed by the policy committee. And so if you'll go to the next slide. So there are three changes. The first is the inclusion of representatives from the working groups and programs, one policy representative from each active working group and program. Some of the working groups are still working on designating a person to sit on the policy committee. If they don't already have a policy committee as part of the working group, they'll develop that and contribute to GPC review of global level policy statements. Next slide, please. So the other major changes, we had a need for changing the way that we handle things that are not statements, but instead are comments, technical comments, not votes, provided on collaborative global processes. And so in the past, we required GPC approval on these comments, which was a very clunky process. And so we have modified this so that working groups and programs are able to provide technical comments on collaborative global processes. They simply need to inform us that they are doing so, so that if needed, we can coordinate across the global scope. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the third change, or I should indicate that, so for these working groups, often again, the policy statements they develop are still typically going to be aimed at a region or at a global scope. And so again, they follow the same process for approval for policy statements as previously. So if the so they should submit to the appropriate section representative if it's regional, or directly to the global board for review if it's global in scope, and we will go through the normal process of review. So those are the three major changes that have happened at the GPC level. We really appreciate participation by the sections, by the working groups, and by the programs. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Melissa. Are you able to stay for a minute, or you got to go straight away? Probably.
I can stay for a minute since Nate has so kindly offered to initiate the meeting so that the speakers aren't left hanging.
Okay. But I've also had an alert. Unless anyone has any burning questions, we'll have to go to Ed's presentation because he's similarly pressed to be called away. So thank you, Melissa. All right. So Ed. Anyone who has questions, we do apologize. Various people have to quickly present and leave. So Ed, you ready to go?
I am. Thank you very much, Justine.
Okay. All right. You can introduce yourself.
Great. Thank you very much. And yeah, it is my pleasure to be here to all the members. So I'm the Vice President for Education and Outreach, and I also have the hat of being the chair of the awards committee. So what I would like to share with you is some work that we have been doing during 2021 that we have fantastic news that the work is going to continue in 2022 and very likely into even 2023. So the first one is a memorandum of understanding between Current Conservation Magazine and the Society for Conservation Biology. As it has been mentioned already in some of the other presentations, the magazine that used to exist under an SCB umbrella called Conservation in Practice, which was a magazine designed to reach a wider audience. That magazine was lost, unfortunately, and what we thought was to bring that back, that potential tool of having a magazine to reach wider audiences. So that's the niche of Current Conservation, which is an existing magazine produced in India. And what we did basically was to create a partnership, which started in January 2021. So we can go to the next one, please, the next slide. So basically, the MOU, we developed a memorandum of understanding between SCB and Current Conservation. And basically, the idea was to create synergies between the magazine and SCB. So as for SCB, what we are working on is on eliciting submissions and recruiting potential ECRs, early career researchers, as handling editors, as well as promote Current Conservation, widely speaking, both internally and externally. And on this, I would like to thank especially the editors-in-chief from all the peer-reviewed journals of SCB, who have been very supportive of this initiative and have included in the acceptance letters of these our three journals an explicit invite for people to submit contributions to Current Conservation. Next slide, please. So the implementation of this has included, we hosted a webinar earlier this year in March. We also had a piece on science communication on the very magazine on Current Conservation. And now it is included officially under our website as part of the family of affiliate publications. So with this, we have already plans to extend the current MOU into 2022 and to 2023. And we have big plans. So part of that is to keep growing our readership and our submission rate. So I would love to hear from everybody who is in the audience now, as potential contributors to the magazine. Also, it's possible to approach the editor-in-chief to propose special issues. So a case in point is the special issue that Tony just mentioned on Africa. And there is another one coming up earlier next year on migratory species conservation. So stay tuned, please. So we can go to the next one. Next slide. The second one is the Memorandum of Understanding between SCB and Skypa Scientists, which is a platform to connect scientists with classrooms, school classrooms around the world. Next one, please. We started this as with a Memorandum of Understanding in early 2021. And again, we are expecting to renew this MOU into 2022 and 2023. So what is very important is to ensure that please you stay tuned and that hopefully you enroll in the program. So it's under our outreach and communications tab on the website, and you can just very easily go there and enroll yourself and make yourself available to classrooms all over the world for you to give presentations about the work that you do. Next one, please. Yeah, so this is the Skypa Scientist partnership on our website that can be easily accessed. So if we can go into the next one, please. Thank you. Part of this was some of the live presentation that we had earlier this year. We had a Conservation Week. So 2 SCB members presented live to many classrooms, primarily in the US, but also in other places around the world. And then going to the last one, please. We also had another outreach activity with Red Butler, Monga Bay CEO and president, who presented on the journey of Monga Bay and how we can find more synergies for the work that we do as conservation scientists through the work that Monga Bay does as an outlet for environmental journalism. Next one, please. And then last training opportunity that have been developed, an MOU developed by, spearheaded by Tony Lynham with Wild Team, which is an NGO that works on training opportunities, training programs, in particular project management tailored to conservation. So we have secured 20% discount for groups of 8 people or more enrolling. You don't need to necessarily know each other, but you have to come as a group to do so. And last, before I close, in regards to the awards, the awards committee, the global awards are being presented tomorrow. The DSA, the Distinguished Service Awards, are being presented tomorrow at 12 p.m. US Eastern Standard Time. So it would be great if you can join us, please. We have decided this year to leave it with a little bit of suspense and as a surprise to announce the winners just tomorrow. So stay tuned, please, and it will be great if you could join us tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Justine. That closes my intervention. Thank you.
Okay, Tony. Tony, can I ask you what you would prefer to do next? There's some urgent things. Who would?
So Israel needs to go, and Israel has a presentation. Is it possible for Israel to go next?
Okay, so I hope all our members can understand. We are juggling many things. So we've got Africa. So this comes under the banner of the section president's presentations. Of course, very special nod to Africa, and presenting is Israel Barakini. Okay, welcome, Israel.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. My session that I'm supposed to moderate starts now, so someone is holding it for me. So I'm just going to be skimming through a report from Africa section, which is the host virtual section for this meeting. So next slide, please. So I clustered the report of the activities of the Africa section over the last 2 years within the 5 siloed strategic priorities for the society. Next. The most important thing for the society, being a member-based society, is to provide services and to support our members. And over the last 2 years, we have provided $500 award grant to 6 graduate students within the section to support their research. About 33 people about 33 people attending this conference this week got free registration to attend and network and learn from this conference. And we rolled out that participation grant last week. We also sustain our mentorship program, where we provide mentorship support to students and to several early career scientists who need help with proposal writing or writing scientific papers for publication in journals. And earlier this year, we also organized an abstract writing workshop during the time when there was a call for abstract for this conference. Next. And we also have Young Women in Conservation Biology, which is a group within the section that provides networking opportunities for early career women in conservation science. And we've also continued to disseminate information to our members through our mailing list and through our social media platforms. And we've been getting a lot of feedback from people who explain how the information we share with them have been incredibly helpful to them in their research and their career development. And we'll continue to do so in the future. Next slide, please. And in terms of the society, and of course, we've heard from Jeff, we've heard from Warren and from the president telling us about the restructuring taking place in the society. And one of those things is that there are many of our members who have complained of not being able to pay their registration fees or their membership dues because of the cost of transferring money from Africa to US. And so this is one of the reasons why we believe that if we're able to register the SCB Africa section within a country in Africa and we have a bank account there, that will ease some of those burden. And we're currently in the process of completing the NGO registration for the Africa section in Africa. And that will help to increase the presence of the society within the continent and also open doors to diversify income sources or revenue sources for the society, especially through project management or policy assessments. We revised our logo. So this is the new logo that you are seeing right there. That is the new logo that we have that we use as part of rebranding the section. We also upgraded our section website, which is one of the things that if you go to the SCB website, you see a revised website with more information. And we're still creating more and more chapters within the section. We had a new chapter created in Zimbabwe and one in Rwanda a couple of months ago. And we also hope to continue to strengthen and sustain other chapters to remain strong and active, and increase section chapter relationships. And of course, one thing to also mention is that some of these chapters, they've been helping to sustain and to introduce a lot of on the ground activities and impacts, in some of them organizing conferences, some of them organizing webinars and other capacity building activities within their section. In fact, Madagascar chapter won about $15,000 to implement reforestation project of one of the protected areas in Madagascar a couple of months ago. And of course, we also continue to sustain the dissemination and creation of conservation science through our newsletter, the African Conservation Telegraph. We are also increasing the number of handling editors and associate editors in the conservation science and practice, as Mark Schwartz mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. As Mark mentioned earlier, in terms of having a special virtual issue for Africa, on Africa conservation issues in the conservation science and practice. And we welcome members from Africa to submit papers to this journal because it provides a lot of waivers and discounts and even free publication for people in certain countries, particularly in developing countries. And then we also increased our social media presence. We have a Twitter account, we have a Facebook account, and we are also hoping to create a YouTube account so that all of our webinars and capacity building workshops, we can post them on our YouTube channel as well. Next. And just like Melissa mentioned earlier, in terms of the Global Policy Committee and working with section policy. So we also created our own section policy committee earlier this year, and we welcome policy statements to address issues from Africa. And one of the things to do is that we're hoping to train our members and chapters to be able to write policy statements to address policy issues or conservation issues in their country or respective areas. Next. Yeah, I'm quickly going to rush through this slide. In the coming years, we're going to be revitalizing our mentorship program to not just be a mentorship program, but to open it up and make room for professional development programs, teaching people different specific skills that are helpful to them in their research, ecological modeling, doing different sort of things, and also soft skills in terms of how to write CV, how to write proposals and things like that. And we're also hoping to develop our section DEI policy and actually have somebody who is going to be specifically be our section DEI officer. We used to have, we have somebody who represents us, but we want to create a specific position for that moving forward. And of course, we are also looking forward to having our Congress in 2022, our next regional Congress in 2022. We are working details on the venue. And once we have more details, we hope to make the announcement during this ICCB, but unfortunately that has not been possible. But once we have more information on this, we're going to be making it available to everybody. But in the meantime, we are collaborating with the North American section to have a diaspora biodiversity symposium for African experts in conservation in North America. And we hope to also replicate the same in Europe in the coming years. And just as many people have said during this meeting, we want to continue to encourage people to become members of the society. And because of this, we're going to be opening, as more funds are available, we'll be providing more grants to pay for membership for people. We're providing more grants to provide research grants for members, and particularly also to ensure that there is increase in South-South research collaborations. That is, Africans working with Africans, Africans doing research with Africans, Africans publishing papers with Africans, and information exchange. And of course, create more chapters. So what can you do? Join the section, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and you can donate also to support our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Israel. Thank you very much. Okay, and all the best for your session.
Thank you.
Okay, we should go back to people that we missed out on. Tony? Yeah.
Yep, so we can go back to the beginning.
I know, yeah, so just, I think this was supposed to be Erin's
Chapter.
section.
Erin,
Yeah,
let's
on
have Erin.
chapters.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's have Erin.
Okay.
I believe Titi was ahead of me in the agenda.
Oh yeah, Tsitsi. Okay. It's okay. So wait, this is going to give you a headache. If you let me just try and do this without hurting you. All right. The agenda prior to this. Okay, so Tsitsi first. Resume share. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I am Tsitsi McPherson, and I am the interim chair of the SCB's DEI committee. Our chair, Ellen Hines, due to unforeseen circumstances, needed to step away from the chairmanship. I also am the co-chair for the ICCB DEI committee and also the incoming LACA president. Next slide. So in line with the transition, the committee composition has changed recently, looking to bring together the programmatic council and the section council, and also members at large. So our current composition includes representatives from sections, from working groups, Smith Fellows, 2 task forces, and also members at large. Next slide. And notable in the last year and a half, the committee has been involved in SCB's global DEI statement in response to Black Lives Matter and Minority Lives Matter. And we've also been integral in the SCB transition represented with a representative on the transition implementation group. Next slide. So what's our current work? So currently, we've spent a lot of this year liaison with the ICCB DEI committee, and that entails myself simply reporting what the ICCB committee is doing to the SCB committee, and then providing insight, feedback, and overall guidance on topics for the ICCB DEI committee. That feedback has included reviewing submission for the newsletter, feedback on our organized session, and feedback on tweets. So we had a number of tweets before the Congress, just highlighting DEI issues. During the Congress, we've also had a number of tweets posted. Next slide. Our current work also includes increasing awareness of how DEI works for the betterment of the membership. And that includes a newsletter post we had in November. We're also working on a January newsletter submission and a journal article on how SCB can contribute to DEI for its members and for the larger conservation community. There's been ongoing discussion about our name change. So through much of this presentation, we are the DEI committee, although on official SCB websites, we are EID. And there's been discussion of the inclusion of justice as part of that. Next slide. Most of our work really has been focused on some recent subcommittees that have been created. Prior to subcommittee creation, the work was managed, but now it's been focused on subcommittees. And one of the key things we're looking at is adoption of phase 2 of the Sexual Harassment Task Force recommendations. And there's been a fascinating article published by BuzzFeed on sexual harassment at Smithsonian institutions. And so it's something that occurs within our field. We also had a session at the Kuala Lumpur ICCB about this. And so we're working with that task force for adoption of their recommendations. We've also worked on increasing membership and staff awareness of DEI issues through examination of hiring a communications intern as part of our FTE, and also exploration of trainings for SCB membership. So this is not just global services training, but this is also training of presidents or boards of working groups, of sections, of task force, such that across the society, there is one clear voice about what we mean by DEI and what we will not allow to happen to our members and our membership. We've also had extensive discussions about how to formalize DEI issues within the society, the critical need for a DEI strategic plan, and also for DEI staffing. Much of what is done within DEI is done on a volunteer basis, and for not only streamlining across the membership, but for effective engagement of membership for institutional memory purposes, we are advocating for DEI staffing. Next slide, I think that might be my last slide. Okay, and then, sorry, the final thing I didn't mention is a lot of our work on the transition implementation group is ensuring that at every step of the process, DEI is not forgotten. For our members who have felt, most recently in Kuala Lumpur, there was a publication about LGBTQIA members, and that should never happen. Our meeting should be focused on conservation science and promoting conservation science. We should not have to worry about our personal safety in any form. And so a lot of the work that we've done on the transition implementation group has to be to insist that DEI has a place, has a formal place, has a voice. Conservation, in terms of DEI, is about also breaking down barriers of colonization and how we interact with each other in conservation spaces, virtually and in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsitsi. Thank you very much. And we'll just move on to Erin, and then we'll make time for questions then. Okay, thank you.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Erin Poor. I am the SCB Vice President for Membership, and I am also the chair of the Chapters Committee. And this morning, I'll just be giving a very brief overview of our chapters and our activities. So we today have 32 officially registered chapters, and I'm sorry this table did not come through here in the slides. Most of our chapters are associated with universities, and many of them are in North America. We are very interested in expanding our chapter reach and the number of chapters that we have. And if you're interested and inspired to create a new chapter, we're always happy to have new applications. Chapters are a wonderful way to network and engage in conservation activities locally. If you'd like to become engaged and network at a larger level and help elevate our members' voices, we have a number of positions available on our chapters committee. Our positions are listed here in this table, and those highlighted in yellow are positions that are available and empty. If you are interested in getting more involved in chapter activities and the chapter committee, which is the main way to raise members' voices to the BOG, please do contact me, and I can send you more information about the available positions within our committee. Next slide, please. Thank you. We are in a good position financially, and that means we'll be providing grants in 2022 to help fund those chapter activities. Activities can range from field work like tree planting to more academic activities like presentations and knowledge sharing. We will likely be providing 2 rounds of small grants as we have done in the past, and we are currently working on identifying the timeline for those 2 different calls, and we'll be working on simplifying and streamlining the granting process. We are aware that some of the application materials have been confusing in the past, and that some of the communications regarding granting reimbursements have also been confusing in the past. So we're working to make the process as easy as possible to get our chapters that funding to engage in activities globally. That's all I have. Please do stay tuned for SCB Communications for more information about those grants. And like I said, please do reach out to me if you are interested in forming a new chapter or becoming involved in the chapters committee. That's all I have this morning. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, before we move on to, we're going to have Vivek and John next, but I promised that we would have a section for questions before it got too long. And so Tony, if you could just share this, we could take 1 or 2 questions on any of the sections that were presented before this. But thank you for your presentations, everybody. And this meeting is going on long, which is indicative of the fact that there's so much to share. What's this? Okay, 10 minutes remaining in the room. Okay, too much.
So if you have any questions for Erin, please drop her a line and her email. I think she's typed it in there, and the same for Sitsi, and the same for Melissa. If you have questions about policy, what we're doing, or what we could be doing, please write to her directly. So thanks. And yeah, I think we can move back on to Vivek and then John.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. And Justine, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just finding your top slide. Just 1 minute.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, there we go.
All right. You can find my top slide, and I don't have too many slides either to get all of you short of time. I know we're running short of time. What I want to say are just a few things, really. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And thank you to Tony and Adina before, who have led SCB so brilliantly over the past few years. All that I'm presenting today is due to the work of the SCB Asia board. You can see the people involved and the names, a special thanks to Mohammed Faradinia, who has, in my absence while I was in the field, prepared some parts of this presentation. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Can we go to the next thing? The board members represent a fairly wide swathe of Asia, although being from India myself, I would love to reduce the number of representatives in India and move to some other parts of Asia where we do not have current representatives, but there's a fairly wide spread that we have as of now. Next, please. Well, this should have come at the end, but nevertheless, just to tell all of you that we are fairly active on the social media. There's a Twitter account, an Insta account, as well as on the Asia list at conbeer.org on the main portal as well. Next, please. So here's where I want to focus, which is at the moment we have 10 registered chapters, which you may have seen also in Erin's presentation. But there are two issues here, and really the most important issue is that many of these are not very active or are not coordinating with both the SCB Asia board and or the chapters committee. And I want to make this as a dual call, a call for those who are not on this, for countries that are not on this in Asia. Welcome to come and express interest to form a chapter to me or to the chapters liaison, which is Alex, who you had seen on the SCB Asia board. But you can drop me a mail and I will put on the chat the contact details as well. The second thing is that those of you who are on this but are not as active as you perhaps could be, again, please reach out. We are having two different ways of doing this. One is we are including all of you on the SCB Asia board as special invitees from the next meeting onwards, and thereby all of you can be part of the SCB Asia board meetings and express your interest there. And also we are reaching out to you bilaterally to offer you some of our services. If you go to the next one, please, Justine. And in this, while we have one award and 2 grants that we have on offer in this section as of now, the chapter grant has been extremely poorly used historically and in the recent past. We've only been able to give out one the last year, and we do have many more. So please do reach out. They range from $500 to $1,500. So please do reach out for that, as well as the travel grant, which has not been used at all. The only thing we've been able to do is, under the guidance of Trishna, who's on the board, to give the Distinguished Service Awards, the last of which has gone to Dr. Mil Wadhway in India. Yeah, so that's
Right.
more or less it, really. Very happy to e-meet all of you. And if any of you are in Asia, please do come forward. One slide, I believe, has been missed out. So I will just verbally say, which is a very important slide, which is that the next Conservation Asia Conference is going to be 10 months from now in October in India, in southern India, in Coimbatore, which is not only very easily accessible internationally, but also a gateway to the wonderful Western Ghats. So there'll be lots of exciting news very soon on our site. Do follow it and do come for the Conservation Asia Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek. And we'll go on to John now. John from Europe section.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, John.
Yeah, good. So I'll be very fast. We have some new board members for 2021, and I've been here now just since 1st of January 2021. One of the big things we did was have a webinar this year where we brought a lot of people together, over 200 people from 40 countries. We also had the first Nordic chapter SCSS, which is a really good thing, adding to the Cambridge and the one in Hungary, all around the world. New York, India has one. So that's great. There's one in Asia too, in Australia, I think. And next year is the 20th anniversary of the Europe section, and we're going to be in Prague, hopefully live for ECCB. So you can switch the slide. We've been active in EU policy. We give out an early career award, and we have a new chapter in Italy chapter that just started recently. So I think that's all I had. I might have one more slide, but yeah, looking forward to a great 20th anniversary year, and hopefully we'll see you in Prague.
All right, thanks, John. All right, so you can post more questions in the chat to everyone else. Okay, North America is next. And hopefully Rebecca is still here with us.
Yes, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Okay. Yes, good. Excellent.
All right.
Okay.
Again, I will keep my remarks very brief at this late stage. I just wanted to provide a couple highlights. I hope many of you were able to attend, who are in the section at least, were able to attend our North America meeting yesterday, and we will have a recording of that available if you were not able to attend. Some of our highlights for 2021, I just wanted the areas that we've been working in. One has been active is policy, working with the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, and also trying to engage with the joint work relating to America the Beautiful, which is includes the 30 by 30 initiative, really trying to work with the DEI committee on equitable interpretation and implementation of America the Beautiful. Our Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity Committee has been busily working on an allyship video series as part of their work, really trying to highlight and conduct some interviews and work highlighting diverse voices in conservation as part of their work. Our Education Committee has been busy preparing for our North America Congress and working on areas of conservation literacy. We've had a very active student committee, Student Affairs Subcommittee, who put on a very successful and popular and well-attended webinar series. All those are available on YouTube on a diversity of very interesting topics. And we also have been trying to increase some of our communications. One of the great things that we've done with our communications is we've been able to fund a communications intern who's been, so we had a first intern and now we just have a new intern who just started. And that's been fabulous to try to diversify, have these wonderful people come help diversify how we connect with our members. Next slide, please. And then one of the biggest things that we've been working on Coming into 2022 is preparations for our North America Congress of Conservation Biology, which will be held in Reno, Nevada in July of 2022. Very much looking forward to hopefully a successful in-person meeting. I just wanted to highlight, it's open to everyone that we are now have our call for abstracts and bonus call for proposals open now. So we are taking regular talks as well as symposia, workshops, etc. We have updates available at the website listed there on the slide. And I encourage you to check out our full website and just see what else we've been up to. So I'll just keep it at that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for holding out. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So we're going to move next to Carla Pel Serrano for the Latin America and Caribbean section.
Thanks, Justin. Well, I'll be brief as well, because I know some attended our meeting yesterday. And so the next, please. So this is our current board. And as Cici mentioned, she's going to be the president starting in January. So I'm going to be the past president. And but some of the other members also are going to be finishing their term. I'm just going to go really quickly about that because that's one of the announcements that we have. Janet Lesman, she's been our Chief Financial Officer, and she's also our representative at the Policy Committee. So she's been doing a great job. Eva is our secretary. Nigel is our Director of Communications, but that's a position that it's going to start again next year. So the call for nominations is out there already. Now we have also Eric as our Director of Education. We have also Sophia as Director of Nominations, Javier as Director of Membership, and Erin was talking about the chapters committee, and before it was Eric, but now this last few months, we got our new member of the board, who is Luis Figueroa from Chile. So we're going to have to update that information for the committee meeting. So next slide, please. So this is our announcement for the call for nominations. As you can see, we have few, almost all of our positions are going to be starting again. So president-elect is going to be opening, but to be a president-elect, you have to have served at the board for some time. So if you haven't been on the board, please join us so you can eventually be the president of LACA. But you can be our Director of Nominations, our Director of Membership, our Director of Communications, or our Chief Financial Officer. So we are trying to reach out to all our membership. So if you haven't been on the board, please come and join us. Or if you have been on the board before and you want to join us again, you are welcome to do it. Just don't forget to send the nominations. They're due December 31st of this year. Please, next. And as you probably remember, we recently started our biannual regional conference. We started in 2018. It was a pretty successful meeting in Trinidad and Tobago, attended 160 people from 23 different countries. And then in 2020, regardless of the pandemic, but we all know what happened, we had the meeting online, just like ICCB right now. And we had 480 people attending from 27 different countries. So it was also very successful. We want to repeat that. So next slide, please. So for next year, we are starting to, well, we already started preparing for our third regional meeting. We are planning to have it join with the society, the Mesoamerican Society for Conservation Biology. So we hope that to be also a big meeting, a success meeting. We want to enhance our network with other people working in the region on different areas and within conservation. So we are preparing for that. We're also opening sooner than later our LACA mentoring program, which is also to try to connect students with professionals around the LACA region to enhance their skills and knowledge within conservation and within the area of LACA. So we haven't opened it yet, but we are working really hard to have it ready as soon as possible. So just stay tuned for that and for the updates of our conference in LACA. And we're proud to mention that we still have one chapter, as John mentioned, and also the Asia section mentioned. We are lacking some of our chapters. We currently only have one chapter, but it's very active. And we're working really hard to start a new one. Hopefully we can start another one in South America pretty soon. We're working with our members for that. And so please, if you want to start a new chapter, as Erin mentioned, it's pretty easy. We're all here to help you. So we hope that we can open new chapters. And now with the changes within SCB, it's probably going to be a lot easier also to be not only part of the chapter, but part of SCB in general. So with that, please contact us. I think I have just one more slide, Justin. Yeah, so please join us. Those are our social media ways to connect with us. And soon you'll be receiving a survey from the LACA board just to get to know a little bit more of our membership. So just stay tuned, and thanks.
Okay, thank you, Carla. All right, so okay, I'm going to now prepare the Oceana presentation, which is Nicola prepared this for you because she cannot be here, but she made a recording, right?
Hi there, my name's Nicola.
Okay, just a moment. Hang on. Technology. All right, are you seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, well, sorry, let's start with this.
Hi there, my name's Nicola. The Oceania section of Society for Conservation Biology, based in Wellington. Our section has 6 chapters within it. One in Papua New Guinea, one in Hawaii, one in Wellington, New Zealand, and 3 in Australia and Brisbane, Sydney, and the Greater Melbourne region. Just a wee taste of what we've been up to and are going to be up to over the next year or so. We held an Earth Optimism event in Australia this year at Taronga Zoo in Sydney, and we're hoping to have more of these kind of events next year. A recipe for the success of those is coming soon. We're hoping our chapters will help post some of those. Also next year we're looking to have a regional conference again. We've been a bit COVID affected like the rest of the world, but in 2022 we're planning to have a joint conference with the Ecological Society of Australia, and that'll be based in Wollongong, which is Sydney. If you want to see what we're up to or going to be up to, check out our website scbooceania.org. You'll see there we've made some policy contributions, our special issues in Pacific Conservation Biology Journal, particularly around our conference events. And we've got a YouTube channel which has records of all our events. Hope you're having a fantastic time at ICCB. Over and out from Oceania.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, all right. So we have to get back on track with our agenda. Let me get back to this. Okay. Questions, I think, is where we're at. Okay. Was there a presentation that I'm missing though?
There was one from Vanessa. There was the conference committee. But I think what we can, I think what we can do is
load that up as a recording for people to look at.
It's a short one. Yep, we can do that. Now, while we're doing that, are there any questions from the participants for any of us? We still have a number of people on the call who are here to answer questions. Any questions for
are we
session leaders?
Are we just speaking up, or do we have to read? How do we choose who's asking a question?
Yes, we're choosing you.
Okay.
Nigel. Come on.
Is there any way to quantify what the results of policy statements or policy comments, quantify the impact that they've had? Do we have any measurements or anything that we can refer to?
It's a good question. And, you know, this is something that we've discussed in the past. So what is the impact of a declaration that we come out with at a conference? So, for example, we had a conference declaration from ICCB 2019. Well, it got people thinking. We had some media coverage, there was readership, but the real impact of a declaration is what happens after the declaration is issued, and what is the follow-up, and what change is made. And that's why declarations are great to have as a kind of a conference product, but they need to be followed up on by the chapter or the section that is that has proposed them. So that's why I think that we need to have a more comprehensive approach to developing our policy. There has to be a plan for implementing our policy and coming up with a plan for implementing, you know, the recommendations that come out of a statement that we produce. And we haven't really effectively assessed our policy statement in the past. So that's something that needs to be done better.
Maybe we could make it an action item to work on that mechanism. And that would be something I'd be willing to help with.
Sure, that'd be great. And, you know, within sections, within chapters, there have been policy statements that have come out that have been effective and have had impact. So I think at the local level, our policy is probably more impactful than it is at the global level. But yeah, we definitely do need to discuss this, and this is something that should be discussed by the Global Policy Committee and also by the policy liaisons within the sections.
Okay. I have another question, but I'll give someone else a chance in case we have a long queue.
Yeah, go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, so I'm very happy to see that SCB is thinking of diversifying the services and outreach while still recognizing the value of the academic base that we come from. But I still think that, to be blunt, we might be quite behind the curve in terms of the mechanisms that we use for implementation. So, and I don't, so, you know, SCB sort of exists in this realm of networking for scientists, primarily academics, but having outreach. And I think one of the things that we shy away from as scientists is having a political stance or an economic stance or social stance or engaging in business. But I think the practicality for people who are not in an industrialized country or not in academia is they still have to balance this conservation with just the economics of existence. So, you know, maybe we could try some experiments, some forays into, let's take, for example, the services that we offer. What are really the services besides conference attendance and access to a journal? But there are skills. So maybe I'm just using an example. If we had, say, like a dedicated education channel, that's fine. But you know, our past experiences have shown that, again, that it only siphons off the top. Say, for example, we had something like programming in R. There'd be many people across Africa, Latin America, who'd be interested as conservation biologists, but would never be able to apply this to their existence, to the economic realities that just allow them to exist because they don't have an academic job. Maybe if we tied our education to a larger context, like Coursera or, you know, some of these other educational platforms where you say, okay, this gives you credit towards data science or data learning. Now we have all these people, you know, across our membership who are interested in conservation, but don't have the mechanisms in place to make a living as a conservation biologist, but they can still learn and apply these skills, and SCB is able to increase their outreach in terms of that. I'm just giving that as one example of the kind of mechanism that we could use to diversify the portfolio of SCB and go along with the sort of structural change. I'll pause there in case anybody else has.
Thanks, Nigel. Alfredo, you've got your hand up raised.
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone in SCB for showing us what you are doing. And I think it's great to hear. I have a question regarding the publication of the journals of SCB. As many of us know, there is a huge problem with publishing in science because publications are owned by very large editorial houses. And there is a lot of discussions regarding this, but one way that people suggest that we should move towards is society-led journals. But of course, many societies have their journals in big publishing houses, and this includes SCB, which works with Wiley, and therefore indirectly is contributing to this huge problem of unfairness for authors, for the public, because everybody either works for free or has to pay to access or to even publish there. And therefore, a society-led journal would be a good option. And I think SCB, because it's a very well-respected and known society, is in a good position, I would say, to move towards this. So I wonder if this is a thing that could be discussed within the society. Thank you.
Maybe Ellen would like to respond to that one.
I would. One of the problems with self-publication is resources that you need that we actually get from our shared profit from Wiley, from our manuscript submission to complete production that they provide for us. So the number of tasks that we would have to take on if we self-published are large, huge. It's hard to quantify all the services that Wiley provides for us. We recently signed a new contract that Adina helped shepherd us through, and that contract is for 5 years. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider alternatives at the end of that contract period. Recently, the Ecological Society of America, the American Fisheries Society, both stopped self-publishing. And I think it was for the fact that they couldn't afford to do it themselves anymore. So you know, it's not off the table, but it is a tremendous amount of resources to publish your own journal.
Jeff, did you want to add to that, or did you want to respond to Nigel?
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I'll just say, Nigel, I think you articulated extremely well exactly the vision of what we talked about extremely briefly on the new services, and also that all those new services would be accessible by this movement of free members. And so the overall vision of, imagine, you know, by 2026, 10,000, 11,000 non-academic, non-mid-career scientists seeing SCB as their home, as their place to connect to services as the ones you mentioned, connect to trainings, connect to and move their careers along. And of course, in a volunteer organization like this, great ideas comes with great responsibility. And I've already recruited Nigel by direct messaging him on the chat to help us with developing these services.
Thanks, Jeff. Do we have any other questions for us?
I would like to ask this question. It's about membership. I already wrote in the chat, but I still want to ask it. The problem is like for the members who wants to be members of the chapter, when we do the election for officers of the chapter, the officer should be has to be a member of SCB Global, but we have many students who cannot afford to pay the fee for the global SCB Global. Then it's very limited, like the same officers who are both member of a chapter and a member of Global stay as officers. So that's, I don't know if there is a way to find how to solve that.
Pascal, thank you for your question. And that's exactly why we're opening up a new form of membership called the associate membership, which is a free membership, which is designed for people such as the students that you described who can't afford to become global members or the participating members at the next level. They can join free of charge. They can become a part of the society, part of our global collaborative network, and they can enjoy the benefits of being a part of that network without having to pay. And they can participate in chapters and sections. They can participate in activities at one level. And that's exactly why we're doing the new membership type.
Thank you very much.
Moses, did you have a question, or is that your?
Okay,
Right.
Tony, we should wrap up. So
Yes.
perhaps the last thing is Vanessa. Perhaps you could introduce Vanessa's presentation as almost the last bit.
Sure. So Vanessa is our incoming chair of the Chapters Committee, and she's got a presentation about ICCB, which we'd like to share with you. And this is the last presentation of the meeting, and then we'll wrap up after this.
Hi all. Unfortunately, the members meeting this year is in the middle of the night for me in Oceania, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Vanessa Adams. I am employed at University of Tasmania as a lecturer in conservation planning, and I'm the president-elect of SCB, and I'm really honored to be in that role. So that means that in that role, I'll be heading up the conference committee over the next year. And I'm really pleased to be doing that. And so I was just asked to speak to you to remind you about what our plans are for 2023. So I'm really pleased that we are all collectively meeting this year virtually, but it does mean that we all missed out on the amazing chance to be hosted in Kigali by our Africa section. And so in 2023, we have that opportunity. So I'm really happy that we're going to be headed back to Kigali and really taking advantage of the local hospitality of the Africa section. So please do plan on joining us in person in Africa in 2023. And the next meeting for us to think about for ICCB is 2025. And that is slated to head to the Oceania section. We are just about to open up our call for proposals for anyone who's interested, both in terms of local support and conference venues across the Oceania region. We'll be evaluating those with the conference committee and then choosing our future destination for 2025 ICCB. So hopefully we'll have some news for you for that, maybe even in our section meetings in 2024 as we head to our regions to let you know where to expect to head globally in 2025 so we can pencil all of that in. So I'm really happy to take any questions virtually. I won't be live in the members meeting, but I'm happy to receive any questions by email and hopefully meet you all in person in 2023 Kigali. Thanks.
Okay. So that's that. Okay, I don't know what that beeping is. All right, so that's the agenda for this meeting. And there's no, unless there's any other business. Okay. It's gone quite a bit longer than we had thought, but I hope that everyone got something out of it, and there's opportunities to follow up on things. And this might be the year to become more involved. Okay, Tony, would you want to wrap up?
Sure, Justine. What I'd like to do is to thank Justine for facilitating the meeting, and to our staff and to all of the members of the board for all the work that you've done over the last year. And I'd especially like to thank Warren and the Global Services team for the work that you've done to make this conference happen. And it's a logistically and technically challenging conference, but you've done a great job, and participants, thank you for your patience and thank you for your participation. And we're going to have a great meeting in Kigali in 2023. And we're also going to have conferences, as you heard, from our North America section and from our Asia section, LACA section, Europe section. We're going to have conferences for everybody next year. So look forward to seeing you, some of you there. And we're also looking forward to this new transition, and looking forward to bringing you with us. And we'd like you to invite your colleagues and your friends to become members, because we want them all a part of our global collaborative network moving forward. And if you have questions for any of us, you've got the emails of some of the people who have popped their emails into the chat, and I'm just going to give you my email right here. Now, if you have any questions for me, please just write to that email address. You can also drop me a line in the chat in the conference app. So please do send us questions, and we're happy to respond to you about any aspects of the organization of our society, because this is your professional society. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'm going to let you get back to your conference. And yeah, thank you all, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you in the conference.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good night. Goodbye.
Bye.